Recording. There you go. So welcome to the final session, the wrap-up session for the Create User Journey Map. And this is the Americas time zone group 1. And let me share my screen to walk you through what we're going to do today. So just as a recap, last time we met, we worked on this part at the top of the mural, the steps brainstorm section. And from there, I moved, I consolidated the stickies that we brainstormed and moved them down to the map section, to the steps lane. And I asked you to asynchronously contribute to the other lanes: actions, feelings, pain points, and opportunities. And today what we're going to do is we're going to go through all of these stickies and basically talk about them and rate and vote on our confidence levels for each, in this case, try to vote on the ones that have the least confidence on. So I will, walk you through the whole thing and tell you the timings and all of that. But what we're going to do now is I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. And I would like everyone to review the existing user journey, and you can add questions and thoughts as comments. So for that, you can just right-click a sticky and click Add Comments if you have any comments or thoughts about that. You can also add new stickies if you go through them and find that you think something is interesting to add. But ultimately, what I'd like to focus on is what you have the least confidence on. And this is to help with that. I have some questions here. So which ones are you unsure if Sasha does, feels, thinks, or experiences? So Sasha is our persona, if you don't remember. What should we research? So basically, this is to find out the things that we don't have a lot of confidence on. And sometimes, and from what happened in other groups, sometimes you also have stickies with actions and feelings and pain points that are more GitLab specific and that affect us at GitLab, but maybe we're not sure if this is a prevalent issue or a prevalent action that most organizations do, or most engineers at other organizations. So yeah, just things for us to follow up on and dig deeper to find what they're all about. And if you don't find a specific sticky, like for example, in one of the other sessions, there was a big doubt around this beginning part, the define, locate, prepare, and confirm, or even in another group, they didn't have anything for, I think, the monitor part. So they thought, okay, so we think we need to understand more what happens in the monitor part. So that's something that they had least confidence on. So to recap, now it will be 5 minutes to, on your own time, walk through all of this and think about where you have the least confidence on. You can add new stickies and you can add comments on existing stickies. Does that make sense? Any questions?
We're looking at steps, actions, feelings, all the way down?
Yes, everything in this map section. So steps, actions, feelings, pain points, and opportunities. Anything goes.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'll start the timer and have fun. So airplane sounds now. I'm also going to try to share some music. I hope you can hear it.
Baby, I can see you drinking too much. Tipsy cause you sipping on your gold Dutch. Some call it rough, but I just call it low touch. Compliment you as our toes touch in a Reebok. Hard fermenting as I rolled up. Your knee sucks. Your teardrops collect on the tear of your red top. Love so deep, had me hitting bedrock. The lead stops until I get my head on. Liquid love on the rocks. Cup of tea with some scotch. Describe your day and your sucks. I'm addicted to you, a victim of my own plot. Depict a life I forgot. I'm sick of righting my wrongs. Illicit love is enough. Drink what was left in my cup. Symbolizes when to give up. Somewhere in that is a lesson you can pick up. I'm sick of being such a sucker for a kiss of your lips. A tonic and gin, the saga begins. I wanna pretend, condemned for my sins. Flipping predicaments, sniffing in cigarettes. Kissing through a silhouette you'll soon forget. The moon reflects the man you used to know. Charmed to bite her arm and whipped a rapid growth. To midnight hope, a dipped I choke. As she sips I smoke, lips I provoke. We risk our moments below our noses. Trickle of roses and a pocket full of poems. Baby drinking too much, I guess she knows.
I've been drinking just way too much, thinking I adore you. Please will someone pass me a cup? I'm about to pour you, and I don't wanna waste your time. I've been running around in your mind. I've been drinking way too much, drinking way too much. I've been staring at you for a while, smoking that smoke over there with a smile. I don't know what it is, but you got me in the zone. I don't really wanna get to know you, but we can still have fun, yeah, just us. I've been drinking way too much, drinking way too much.
As you see this story, we want you to think about questions. Questions such as, what is fair play?
Baby, I can see you drinking too much.
Lately I can see you acting foolish,
Blatant when you taking aims at Cupid.
but daisies don't define your lady's true lips. Yeah, daisies don't define your lady's true lips.
Baby, I can see you drinking too much.
Lately I can see you acting foolish,
Blatant when you taking aims at Cupid.
but daisies don't define your lady's true lips. Yeah, daisies don't define your lady's true lips.
Baby, I can see you drinking too much.
Lately I can see you acting foolish,
Blatant when you taking aims at Cupid.
but daisies don't define your lady's true lips. Yeah, daisies don't define your lady's true lips.
Baby, I can see you drinking too much.
Lately I can see you acting foolish.
Blatant when you taking aims at Cupid.
I won't be the first to say I'm sorry, even if it's my fault. It's not like I don't know how to say it. It's just that I won't. It's just that I won't. It's not like
Do people want 1 more minute to review, or is everyone 1 more minute? Okay, just to be safe, I'll gift you 1 more minute. It's my Christmas gift.
sometimes I hurt so much when everything builds up. Don't know which way to turn to keep afloat. I'm traveling on
right, it's a wrap. This part. So let's see what we have. Let me share my screen. So now what we're going to do is we have some comments here that a few people added. I think most of them have to do with confidence of things that we need to do more research. Unless there are specific questions that Kai and Eric would like to ask now and are more related to clarity of the stickies.
I think mine was confidence, if that's a thing that the person does necessarily. It feels like there's a lot of project management in Sasha's life, and it's not clear if that's something Sasha does. So it's like I asked I sort of like peppered the stickies around or comments on some of those, but it was more like, yeah, that was sort of my thought.
Okay.
They're
Yeah,
certainly not
my-
all related to that. I think I left like one or two for it.
My comment was more around confidence and whether or not this is limited to GitLab. But also, I think to Kai's point, if we look back up at the persona, it says 30 to 40% of their time, of Sasha's time, is taken up doing non-engineering tasks. So I think that's probably an opportunity to clarify in this user journey, like, is that stuff that she should be doing or is necessary, or can we
Right.
take that time back? So that might be the meta discussion there.
I think that's a very interesting point about potentially highlighting areas that are more, not necessarily shallow work, but is not the core responsibility of this persona. Like managing the development environment to make sure it doesn't break. It's not, the core thing. But anyway, yeah, I think all of those are good questions. But I think those are more related to the confidence levels and not so much the clarity or thoughts about what's already here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to ask each person to one at a time, 5 minutes each, to share the stickies that you have the least confidence on and also explain why. So it's similar to what you were just doing now, Eric, but maybe adding a bit more context if needed. And also other people are invited to participate and explain what they think as well. So let me stop the timer. So who wants to go first? I mean, Kai, would you mind going first since you already have a lot of comments with questions?
Sure, I can go first.
Okay, so I'll add 5 minutes on the timer and I will follow you. And so we can see exactly what you're looking at. You don't need to share your screen. And yeah, just share the top, first, the top thing that you don't have a lot of confidence on, and we'll go from there. I don't know if we will have time to go through all of them.
Okay, yeah, I think the top one that I have the least confidence on is sort of all of the project management. And there was a bunch of them that were like that, like adding correct labels to the issue, creating the issue, using issue search to find the right issue, writing a detailed proposal on the issue. We're sort of the one, like, and then down here where we have like negative feelings, they're sort of all about project management in the early stages. And even like locate, like I wonder if every time they do this job, if this is like, they do these things like reading documentation. I don't know. I guess that was sort of my other piece, is like, it's not clear if these are every time asks. So yeah, I think the project management ones, and then the GDK one, there was a lot that's like very GitLab specific, but also I hear our engineers complain about it, but I also hear the people who don't use it very frequently complain more, I think. And so I wonder if that's like a not an every time preparing activity. So it's hard to separate like first time through maybe doing something and then like
Yeah.
the rest of their work doing something.
Yeah, I think that's valid. And it would also be interesting for us to highlight that in the journey map, that certain things don't happen all the time, but are important parts that we want to record and see and visualize here, like reading and documentation or adding labels. Maybe that doesn't happen all the time, but it's certainly something important. Okay, so let's in the minutes that we have left, let's talk a little bit about the project management ones that you highlighted.
Sure.
Is there anything else you want to add to this, or is there anyone else, Mike, Eric, Matt, that want to share a little bit about that if you also share the same confidence about these or anything else?
I guess I was just going to comment that I don't think this is necessarily just a GitLab thing, right? Like, I mean, I've been on other engineering teams and they all had to work in Jira issues or some other project management to communicate status and pick up work off a board, whether it's Trello or Jira. So I wonder if the opportunity or the friction is just more around generally communicating status outside of the day-to-day engineering work and keeping stakeholders and other team members up to date. We have some very specific processes here that may make it more challenging around how we label things and how we work within our tool, but I do think it's a universal opportunity or need for software developers to work within these project management processes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Eric.
I think I will say one of the other thoughts I had about all these project management things was they also felt very GitLab centric because we use our planning tools. And I don't think other organizations, there are many organizations who have not adopted our planning tools and use Jira. And so like, I'm not sure what, I know Gabe has, looked into like what those look like, but I think that's where I'd be also curious are these pains ours because of our planning tools, or are they ours because of our organization? Or is it like, we're just not aware of some of these because we don't talk to many people who do this kind of thing?
Yeah. And interestingly, like here we're all create folks, but this user journey is so big that it could certainly benefit from contributions from many other teams like Plan. And that's the great thing. That's exactly the whole goal of this exercise, is to try to break these walls down. We couldn't invite everyone in all stage groups that contribute to this experience, Sasha's experience with this job to be done. But certainly it's something that we can highlight and also ask from Gabe's team if they have more input on this and help improve this user journey. All right. Okay, so thanks, Kai. Now, who wants to go next and share the top, or a few of the top things that they have the least confidence on?
I mean, in a similar vein with what Kai said, I can voice over my comment that I left. I only left one because,
okay,
honestly, most of them I had pretty high confidence that Sasha experienced a lot of them. But the one I had around working and battling with the GDK, it came up a lot when I was making my cards. And I'm curious whether this is a GDK problem or if it's any moderately complex development environment at any organization. So I guess that's the question, and maybe the opportunity to research is whether or not, or I should say how often organizations have challenges like we have with the GDK. Yeah, I think that's probably how I'd sum it up. I mean, I know that there are opportunities out there to simplify development environments and setting up development environments and things like that. So maybe it's just a chance to dig in to those areas and research what the actual benefits are to individual contributors and how often they run into these things. If they are the ones, like Kai said, that are day-to-day using it, maybe maintaining their local environment's not that big a headache, or maybe it is actually, like every time they pick up a new task, they have to spend X amount of time setting up their environment.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this was a point that came up in the other sessions as well. People, of course, mentioned GDK directly, but overall, we thought that this was a generic issue that could affect some organizations more than others, depending on their tooling. So yeah, we could abstract this to a pain point that affects all kinds of organizations with their development environments. And maybe there's an opportunity here for GitLab to do something or not, but I think it's important that we acknowledge that in the user journey. Thank you, Eric. Does anyone else, Mike, Matt? Yeah.
On that note, I think kind of combining what Kai said too, that there's different levels of, I don't know if we would say battling, but like getting your development environment working. The first time it might take a long time. If you're constantly doing it, you probably have to do a little bit every time, but it seems to be working. But there's always some little maintenance, I think, that needs to happen, whether it's even just pulling down the latest code or updating dependencies when they change and knowing that they change. So I think there's I think this is pretty common for all engineers in whatever environment they're working in, is trying to be able to get your get your development environment set up before you can even start on the code or making any changes.
Whoops. I don't know what happened. Give me just a second. Mural just went blank. But yeah, that's a good point, Matt, of also trying to bake that into the user journey, so that this might happen every time or not. And it might be good for us to understand that on a average level. Is this something that, I mean, of course, we can assume that it happens the first time around, and there's a lot of effort there to get the development environment up. But usually for the average engineer, for our user base, how often does this happen and what is the effort? Okay.
And for like, if open source is something you care about, outside contributions, I mean, most READMEs are dedicated to making it able to outside users to understand what they would take to set this up, in the hopes that would get them to contribute to it. So it is a barrier to entry to open source contributions.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I think at least I had been thinking about Sasha as an individual contributor in a company like GitLab or a larger organization. But Sasha could be an open source developer, and switching context can be very expensive if you're working on multiple different projects and even multiple different like tech stacks and moving between those environments.
Yeah, this is a great point, Mike. Maybe, I don't know, from the top of my head, there could be an opportunity to help project maintainers craft better READMEs, or structure the READMEs better with templates, or I don't know, things like that. Yeah, great thoughts. Okay, who else? Yeah, Mike, sorry, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to volunteer for the next one.
Okay, cool. So let's do that. You're up, Mike.
But I don't know if it's cheating or not, because it's not about necessarily the confidence in these actual stickies, but I guess it was lack of confidence in stickies that aren't there. So what I mean is most of what we do in source code is not about actually Git and checking in code. It's all about rules and management of rules. And in code review, most of what you all work on is about merge requests, and all of that's under the theme of making sure the right people are checking in the right code and the right permissions, and it's met the right conditions before it goes into the code base. And I don't see that theme represented strongly here across these stickies. And I feel like that's all 2 of these stage groups work on, is that idea. So I don't really know how to solve that problem with stickies, but I feel like that theme of rules and who can do what and when and just locking down code is essentially what people pay for in 2 of our stage groups. And I don't see that theme represented strongly here.
Mm-hmm. So you think that's something, so that that sounds like more of a execution problem, execution of the user journey map and trying to visualize that, and not so much something that we need to do some research to inform the user journey map, or maybe it's both.
Yeah, I feel like we kind of just need to add some stickies in here, and I'm thinking maybe in the prepare section, like for Sasha, right? It's probably the consumer of these things. Make sure the proper permissions are in place, and then maybe in the execute/monitor stages, maybe something around the lines of, I don't know, make sure that you're getting to proper reviews. I don't know how to word that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there was, I don't know if it was with this group, but there was a group that I think it was both in the prepare and also in the execute stages, had something to do with the organization's branching strategy. And so it's basically, and it was like understand the organization's branch strategy to see how you should name your branches, and how you should, where you should branch from and where you should target your merge requests and so on. So I think it's related to that, and also the point or the moment where you need to ask someone to review, which has also to do with permissions. Yeah.
So what's the takeaway from that one? Should just try and add in a few stickies? Are we past that point? What are the goals here?
No, you're free to add more stickies here. Even after the session, if you want, you just have to let me know. Okay, I'm done adding them, so that I can have like a snapshot of how this looks like. But other than that, you're free to add more things if you feel they're missing.
Okay.
Hi.
I'll just add in
Mike.
one then into the prepare section, and then I'll leave a comment on there of, low
Okay.
confidence that the rules side of this is represented there.
Mike, do you think based on the job that's a thing that happens? I guess, like, I get the sort of argument that like create works on those, but that I don't know if you go all the way to the top. I forget what the job says now. Feel like do you think that's a thing for coding in general, or is it just really about like finding a reviewer?
I would say it's coding in general. I mean, as soon as you have more than one person working on a project, you are inherently in the case of having to agree who's going to do what to the code base. And then I think that manifests itself at the organizational level necessity for rules and things like that. But at a smaller scale, you know, I think that's reviewing merge requests and things like that. So
Okay.
anyways,
Yeah.
I feel like we have to move on.
Thanks, Mike. I think, did we go through everyone? Matt, I think you're missing.
Yeah, right. Yep,
Okay.
I haven't gone, but
Okay, let's do that.
okay. Yeah, I think there was a couple around like notifying people that are related that were kind of low on my confidence list. So there's one here about informing reviewers through comments. I don't know if that's just how we do it at GitLab, or that seems like that could be a more GitLab specific way of communicating with people. I don't know. But just in general, and maybe like Mike's point there, maybe there's some things missing here around like, how is the communication happening between coming into Sasha and then what is Sasha sending out to reviewers, and how does that happen? And that's, so I'm not sure if there were some that were missing, especially around the, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that makes a lot of sense. We are not, for example, we're not representing very well, for example, communication that happens outside of GitLab. That some teams that work in Office, you know, maybe they have pair sessions where they're coding together, or pair review, or I don't know, have a physical board where they put up like, this is ready for review or not, or using Slack and Slack integrations. So there are many ways to do that. And yeah, right now it's a bit more GitLab specific. So I think I agree that we need to understand those a bit more.
Yes, well said.
Cool.
That was the main point that I had. I don't think there's probably the other potential missing thing is around, or low confidence. We have some, if I go over to the end here somewhere, around create additional issues, which gets kind of to like our iteration and how we do it. But I was wondering if maybe there's something earlier on in this that instead of just kind of creating issues after the fact, if we need to do that iteration or kind of breaking down of work somewhere earlier in the process.
Yeah, one of the other groups had two actions about creating issues.
Repair
One
or
was
something,
the one you
yeah.
just showed after the fact. There was also another one about reviewing the requirements and then breaking it down into separate issues while we're still in the planning phase before we, you know, attack the problem.
So I could add a sticky for that in here somewhere.
Okay. All right. Anyone like to comment on that, or anything else that Matt shared? Okay. Everyone is putting their reflective faces on, you know, like the thinker from Rodin. Okay, is anything else that anyone would like to share in terms of confidence that we'd like to research or not? We still have a few minutes that we can spare for this.
I was thinking about the notifications thing. I think it's is an interesting one because you're right, Matt, there was places, I don't think mine's just like up at the top. I wouldn't follow me around. There were a lot of places where notifications are, they were like mentioned a few times, like in terms of comments and to-dos and emails and other things. And I think that's, I agree. It's like I would say I don't have a low confidence that like notifications are important. I think it's like which notifications and when and where and how they're delivered is sort of the piece that I have like a low confidence on. Like what are the right signals there. So yeah, I appreciate you mentioning that, because they were sort of sprinkled all over, but they didn't feel, you're right, like strong enough in any one way that we were like, yeah, we're doing great or something.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kai. That adds even more context, I think, to what Matt was sharing. All right, now that we're done with this, so what we're going to do now is silently vote. And let me see how many things we have here. We have plenty, but since we have so many here, we're going to limit this, and the other two groups, it worked well. I'm going to limit this to just 5 votes per person. And we're going to vote on the things that we have the least confidence on. And of course, some of them you've already heard from each other, but we'll vote on them anyway. And I'm going to start the voting session. And one thing is that in Mural, if you have never done a voting session, you can vote by clicking on the stickies, and you can even add more votes if you want to spend all of your 5 votes on one sticky, for example. Just keep clicking to add votes to the same thing, and you can subtract votes by shift clicking on the sticky. Any questions? Yeah, Kai.
Which sticky are we voting on? All the stickies or just
We're voting
on
everything on here, the map. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything on the map. Okay, so let's get started. Let me start the voting session. Least confidence, and 5 votes per person. And I'm going to give 5 minutes for you to do that. All right, have fun.
I will be the first to say I'm sorry, even if it's my fault. It's not like I don't know how to say it, it's just that I won't. It's just that I won't. It's not like I have a heart of gold, but I'm honest to a fault, and I messed up as a god. Damn goat.
First they will bend in the moon, it will send, slide down your collar, your bones, they will mend, I know they will. All quarried out, but not blunt, of I know your stormlight will rise up again across the wave. The meetings of the waters could at the heart just below the ribs to the higher reach
2 minutes left.
from the roots of love. Meetings of the waters. Your skin tastes of gorse far as we lie in the dark. Mouth is of sapphires when you speak. There's a spark across the room. The meetings of the water could have brought just below the ribs.
All right, everyone's done voting. So I'll stop the timer and end the voting session. All right. I'm going to share my screen so we can all look at the results of the voting and see if we have some consensus. I know there were a lot of stickies, and that's okay. So the top three that had most votes were update dependencies GDK as needed. I think we already talked about that, which is related to getting a local environment set up, and also to create follow-up issues as needed. And those we've discussed. Let's see which ones we have new here. Ensure permissions are available to perform changes. I think this is related to what Mike was talking about, source code rules. Inform reviewers of changes through comments, the notifications that we were discussing before. GDK again, notifications, better issued submission to make it easier for people to provide details on reproducing. Can someone talk about this one? I don't know who voted.
I voted for it. It was in the vein of there were like lots of comments about triaging issues, or not comments. There was like other stickies about sort of that first area of project management, like finding out what issues exist, duplicate issues, all of those things. And this was like this is down in the solution or opportunity phase, which is like if you get better inputs, then sometimes all of those other things are potentially easier. And so, but I don't know, it's just there.
Okay. Thank you for adding that context. Then we have monitor deployment. Who voted on this one, and can you explain?
I think that was me. There may or may not be a good feedback loop when you are pushing code. It's just such an open-ended thing. If you've set it up and you're using our monitor tools, that is a path. It's questionable whether that is in any way connected to kind of the create flow here. Is it in merge requests? I don't think that it is. Is it in pipelines? Basically, just like that is an important thing. You push code, especially to production type environments. And did I just take down the system with the code I pushed? And we don't really know what that feedback loop looks like now.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, just know more of how do engineers monitor the deployment. All right. Yeah, and anything else that anyone would like to highlight from these results, and ask a question or comment on? Anything surprising or interesting?
I just say, despite the variety of one voters, it feels like there's really just like a couple themes, which is good. They
Yeah.
seem like consensus based around some themes. It's just people picked essentially whichever sticky was closest when they clicked vote for that theme.
Yeah. That's okay. Yeah, exactly. Cool. So let's finish this. I think all of you deserved confetti. There you go. Woo! Yeah. It's one of the few times I've used this. So congratulations. Thank you so much for participating. So let me just quickly share with you the next steps. So what I'd like for you to do after this session today, if you have time and while it's still fresh, to share your thoughts and what you learned from this activity in the corresponding epic thread. There are two threads, one for the wrap up and the other for the introduction session that we had, I think a couple of weeks ago. This is the wrap up session and you can share your thoughts here, and also the intro session. If you haven't shared your thoughts, feel free to do that. After this, I'll share the recording on YouTube, and we'll have the task of trying to combine your user journey map with the other two groups' user journey maps and build a hypothesis-based user journey map for this job to be done in this persona. Yeah, and that's that. Any comments or questions before we part ways?
There a thread for step 2 to leave feedback?
There isn't, but feel free to create one.
Okay. And then once you have this combined massive journey map, like what are we doing with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we're doing with it is based on these voting sessions as well, and your comments, is to highlight those themes. And we know that if all goes well, we will have like a neat user journey map, but we will also know which areas we need to do more research. And in general, we need to make sure that everything that is in the user journey map has high confidence, either through existing research or through our own existing experience, that everything there has high confidence. So right now, this is a hypothesis-based user journey map, and we will turn that into a research-based user journey map. And all of this activity was to get the buy-in for that, because it will take more work, and to make sure that we brought down the walls and of the silos between, in this case, the groups of create, to make sure that we're all thinking about the user journey and not just the features in our own groups. I don't know, does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, yeah, good question. Thank you, Kai. Okay, so before we part ways, you already know how this goes. You can open the chat, and I'd like for you to share through an emoji how you're feeling today. What is your mood after this session? I think for most, if not all of you, it's morning. Well, not for Mike, I think it's already 1 p.m. But yeah, share your mood through an emoji to see how you're feeling and how others are feeling. I hope well. Okay, Eric is festive. I hope not just for the holidays, also for wrapping this up. Kai is happy. Mike is looking forward to decorating the Christmas tree. Do you still have to do that, Mike?
This is like one of the last things where I had
The last thing you
to
think
work
about, yeah.
before Christmas time. So I'm on Christmas time now.
Yeah.
Of course, working tomorrow, but.
And Matt is feeling a bit, is that what, crazy? I don't know what that is. Goofy?
Yeah, I don't know either, but seemed appropriate.
Cool emoji. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kai, Mike, Matt, and Eric. This was great. I hope you have a great rest of your week and great holidays if we don't speak before that.
Thanks, you
Ciao,
too.
ciao.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.